Alright, we're back. We got another DT game, which is always a treat. This time his opponent is ER Lucius, or Emma in the Vassal. DT's playing his Mercenary Beast list again, with a splash of Elite Sentry droids from the Imperial faction, pulled in with Elite Jawa's ability. Emma is playing a pretty standard Imperial list. Vader, 2 sets of jets, a regular jet, a regular probe droid, 2 regular officers, Zillow, and Rule by Fear. Looks like we missed the first activation. Emma played Planning. So Emma has 5 cards. The nice thing about the Jet Trooper list with 3 sets of jets and a probe droid is that gives you 7 activations, which is a lot better than 6. It also lets you redraw Shared Experience, which just got played, up to 6 times. So you could potentially use Shared Experience as blocks with Zillow up to 6 times. 7 actually, because 6 Jet Troopers and 1 Probe Droid. The variations of this list I usually see are with Elite Sentry Droids instead of Vader. That gives Shared Experience even more versatility. Plus, the Elite Sentries have a little bit more synergy with the vehicles and droids than Vader does. But we'll see how this Vader flavor works out. Again, the Bantha was pretty popular before HOTE. In fact, Paul Heaver took a Bantha list to the finals at Worlds in May, which was right before the Droid Wave and right before HOTE was released. Paul Heaver lost to DT in the finals with his Bantha list. This time, DT elects to focus a Elite Sentry droid instead of his Elite Enexu like he did in the last game. It could be that he's not expecting the Elite Enexu to have as an immediate of an impact as the Elite Sentry droids can have on HOTE. This being such an open map, it's not hard for the sentries to get into a good position to attack in round 1. Gideon forced the Bantha to move, which also gives a free movement point to R2-D2 and the Elite Sentry droid. So that's how the R2-D2 was able to scomp round 1. Right now, both players just using their small groups to wait each other out until the end of the round. With Devious Scheme, DT will get the last activation of this round. He'll probably save the Bantha for that activation, although he may elect to use the Sentry Droids last. He probably will choose the Bantha though, because he doesn't want the Bantha to be in Darth Vader's attack range at the end of the round. The way that Emma is positioned, DT won't be able to trample on top of too many figures right now. We can count out the spaces. The Bantha Rider has 5 speed, 10 with Beast Tamer, 15 if you double move. But massive figures movement is a lot slower than small figures. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. With the double move, the Bantha Rider could occupy these 6 spaces, which is not great. This is why we haven't seen that many Bantha lists on HOTE in this meta. It's just too hard to get the Bantha out of your deployment zone. Emma starts positioning their figures on the right side of the map, making sure to keep them relatively spread out in case the Bantha does find a way to come in. Emma figures they have an advantage on the right side of the map because the jet troopers can jump over those impassable terrain spaces. Also, the probe droid can do the same thing. However, DT also has a lot of figures that can do that between the Enexu and the Bantha Rider. Emma's only figure left is Darth Vader, while DT has to decide now whether he wants to activate his Sentry droids or his Bantha. His Bantha probably won't have an impact in round 1, so he may choose to just waste its activation and get it into a better position. As long as he keeps it at least 4 spaces away from Vader, that should be okay. And in fact, he does choose to do that. This way, he can play a lot more aggressively with his Elite Sentry droids. Again, it will have 15 movement points. I believe it's used 10 so far. He could elect to attack right now. The Bantha rolls blue-red with a surge for +2 accuracy. Instead, he decides to move in and just land on a jet trooper. This space is a little dangerous because if Vader had fleet-footed, looking for a fight, or urgency, Vader could easily get an attack off on the Bantha. Vader could also get an end of round attack off on the Bantha that way. But Emma does have to consider that DT may have negation. DT may also have Junlin Terror. So moving Vader in could be a little risky. DT could also have Crush. Vader will activate, and in fact, Vader is going to go sit on the generator on the left side of the map. Now, my opinion, moving Vader to the left side of the map is a blunder. You can see DT is moving his whole force to the right side of the map. With Vader over there next to the generator, he's not going to be a factor in the game at the end of the round with a force choke, or even during the next round. Probably not at the end of the next round, and maybe not in the round after that. So this is 3 wasted rounds for Vader because of that move. In my opinion, that's about as bad as you could move position Vader. DT takes a long-range charged shot with his Elite Sentry droid. He gets 6 range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 2 with Surge. And that's not quite enough to hit this Jet Trooper. So a charged, focused shot wasted with that Sentry. Now I expect him to move the other Sentry away from Vader, although he may try to just kite Vader. And yes, he does in fact move this Sentry to the right side of the map, leaving Vader high and dry by himself on the left. I'm not even sure if Vader can get line of sight for an end of round force choke right now. Although from this corner here, I don't think he has line of sight to that Enexu. So a completely wasted end of round action for Vader. He will move up to. You don't want Vader to be your objective runner. It's a complete waste. Emma is targeting Gideon. I'm not sure if they actually have line of sight. I guess actually yes, they do. So Gideon will take a force choke. It does. It's hard to tell. I'm not sure if he actually does have line of sight. Definitely to the bottom left corner from Vader's bottom left corner, but I'm not sure if he has. Down 3 over 4. Down 3 over 4. He actually does. He actually does have it. Down 3 over 4 hits this vertex. Down 3 over 4 hits Gideon. He does. He does have line of sight. So at least Vader doesn't waste his end of round force choke, but again, that's not quite enough damage output from a 13-point figure. DT unleashes Junlin Terror, which is 2 movement points, and a attack or ability, which he will use Trample. In fact, he lands on the focused jet with Crush, dealing 4 extra damage. So that's 5 damage just from the movement. And now he's going to play Trample, which can potentially do 3 more. He's hoping for at least 2, which is a 5 out of 6 chance. And he does do 3. So the focus jet is finished off. Not sure why he rolled a defensive die. The other jet takes 3 damage. Initiative's going to pass to DT. And DT will likely activate his Bantha now. Although with 21 health, the Bantha actually can take a full activation of attacks. The only way for Emma to kill the Bantha in one activation would be if they had Squad Swarm plus some other cards, but the Bantha's not in too much trouble. In fact, actually, the jet that took the trample damage was a regular jet, which got finished off. Emma should redraw shared experience now, however. DT reveals Grizzly Contest with Black Market. He says that he should have used Black Market before Juneland Terror. I'm not sure how that works. I think the player controlling those cards can choose the order since they're both end of round. Initiative passes to DT. Emma is saying that they have a start of round card. It's Fuel Upgrade. They also try to play Take Initiative. But DT counters with negation. Sometimes I will actually let Take Initiative go through if there's no chance that any of my figures are going to die because of it, because that will also waste an extra activation of my opponent. So for instance, in this case, if Emma did get Take Initiative off, they would have had to tap one of their officers. There's no way that that a single set of jet troopers can finish off the Bantha, so it doesn't matter who goes first. The Bantha will take some extra damage if it has to go second, but when the Bantha's already in kind of the middle of your opponent's troops, you want to play pretty aggressively with it. DT here elects to use 3 movement points, and then another 3 damage trample. Now he has a choice. He has 1 more action left and 2 more movement points. He could choose, if he wanted to spend the other 2 movement points to land on top of the jet troopers and then attack, or he could choose to spend the other 2 movement points to move away and then do another move to completely retreat with the Bantha. Either choice is decent. If he can finish off one of these jets, it might be good to go for the kill, but it is a riskier play. It's not as passive. He does choose to move on top of the jets and take the chance to kill the jet. I think this is the right play since he's already ahead. In fact, he has Grizzly Contest in his hand, so he's going to just kill this jet outright. And now he still has another action. He can't move anymore since he's ended his movement on top of other figures, but he can attack. The probe droid has 2 health left. The jet trooper has 3 health left, plus agile. He might go for the probe droid. And he's deciding to take 2 strain as cards. That's kind of a toss-up with the Bantha at this point. It has so much health that it doesn't really matter if you lose the cards or take 2 damage. My guess is that he'll go for the probe droid because that's a much more likely kill than the jet with agile and a Zillow discard and an extra health. But we'll see. And yes, he does elect to attack the probe. And he max rolls for 5 damage against 2 blocks. Which would be enough to kill it even with the Zillow discard. Had he attacked the jet, Emma would have discarded shared experience to keep the jet alive with 1 health. At this point, DT is way ahead on material. Vader is a absolute non-factor. In fact, DT can just move up and completely control the right side of the map, probably picking off the blue jet if it doesn't go right now. All DT has to do to win this game is avoid Vader. Emma has almost no options left. Attacking the Bantha is not that useful. He's going to get 2 jet attacks off, 2 elite jet attacks, 1 regular jet attack, and 2 attacks with officers, which may not even be enough to kill the Bantha this round. Meanwhile, DT's going to focus up his elite sentry droids, one of them, or maybe he'll focus the Enexu. He still can scomp with R2-D2, and then he's going to move all his figures up to contest the right side of the map. Emma decides to activate Vader. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with Vader. Okay, so they move Vader up and force choke Gideon. And then they play Dark Energy to deal 1 more damage to Gideon, which kills Gideon. Now, DT now has another option. Instead of going to contest the objectives on the right side of the map, he could instead start to whittle Vader down with his sentry droids. It's pretty safe for him to do that now, since Vader's so close. In fact, he could pounce on Vader with the Enexu, and then he could move 6 spaces away. And there are some very interesting places he could pounce to. Like he could pounce, he could move over to the left 2 spaces, pounce 3 spaces to the top left of Vader, and then he could move up and away from Vader, or he could keep his Nexu kind of closer to the rest of his army. But the first way, he would be pulling Vader still away from the rest of the battle, which is kind of where he wants to keep Vader. Or he could just keep ignoring Vader if he wanted to, and focus on the right side of the map. His Bantha still has 0 damage, so 21 health remaining. If he can finish off one of these jet troopers, he could save the Bantha some damage, but the only jet trooper that was vulnerable at all is this blue one, which is going now and attacking with green, green, blue, blue. Keep in mind that the jets do have +1 speed this round from fuel upgrade, although this jet used shared experience to spend 3 movement points and become focused. So it has 2 movement points left from flyby and 2 movement points left from its move action. A terrible roll coming out. That actually was a regular jet, so it did not roll an extra blue. And the surge only counts for +1, so 3 damage. Very disappointing roll. Now that the Bantha is only dealt 3 damage, it's pretty much guaranteed that DT will get to go again with the Bantha next round. It's very likely that DT will either draw Junlin Terror or he already has it in his hand. So it's very likely that there will be a Junlin at the end of this round. So with the rest of his army, DT may start focusing on Vader with very little repercussions from the Bantha. DT is activating his Nexu. He's probably going to go attack the red jet in the middle of the map, although he may elect to attack Vader. He does choose to go for Vader with the Nexu. And he does pounce to the top left of Vader's space. So he has 3 movement points left. Can't quite get in range of those generators. A very weak roll from the Nexu, only 4 damage showing, although only 3 blocks, which would get bleed through. Emma has to re-roll this black die, or maybe they already did. This would be 1 damage and bleed, which would be very bad for Vader. Yes, 1 damage and bleed on Vader. The nice thing about this move from DT is it opens all lines of fire for the elite sentries against Vader. The Nexu does stay within 2 spaces of Vader, which means that Vader can get an end of round attack off against it. However, a 2 red die +1 attack is probably not enough to kill the Nexu. In fact, I think it's impossible. Emma decides to go for the Nexu with his elite jet, dealing 4 damage, which means an end of round attack with Vader will potentially kill the Nexu. However, it also moves Vader outside of his positioning again, which means that DT's elite sentry droids will just be able to keep unloading on Vader. Two movement points left for this elite jet trooper. Instead of moving the jet on top of the generator, he decides to move the jet towards the middle of the map. I think that's good. I think he probably should have moved it next to the generator instead. The middle generator, that is. That way, he could still activate him next round and get an attack off on a sentry. And he could support Vader. And he could score points from the generator. Okay, instead he decides to move to the generator on the left. This is a safer spot for the jet. However, this also means the jet will not be able to contribute with an attack next round against the sentry droids. It's possible that Emma is thinking that Vader will not go finish this Nexu off, and instead that will be the job for this jet trooper. Keep in mind that Emma is getting initiative next round. Also keep in mind that DT has only lost Gideon so far. DT stalls by putting his smuggler on the middle generator. The smuggler's ability gives him -2 accuracy against attackers. So there's no way that these officers are going to be able to contest that. Emma still has 2 officers and the yellow jet. He has to make sure that his figures end in spaces where DT can't get a good Junlin Terror off at the end of the round. There's 4 damage. Again, the Bantha has 14 health left, so absolutely not enough damage yet. And he decides to move his jet to the center of the map. DT still has his elite Jawa as well as his elite sentry droids. There's a regular jet trooper sitting in a vulnerable spot, although it does get -1 surge because of the generator. DT elects to grab the right generator with his elite Jawa for 4 victory points at the end of the round. At this point, I believe he will try to attack Vader with his Esentries because that's pretty much the best thing they can do. I don't think he needs to kill Vader to win this game, but he might as well start working on it. Emma only has the officers left. Attacking the Bantha with the officers is actually pretty decent because there's no way for the Bantha to cancel the surges. So the surges won't be wasted, and you could even use them to focus the officers. But like I said earlier, Emma has to be careful not to leave his figures in a position that they can get Junlin terrored at the end of the round. And he's going to have to surge for range, but it still does 2 damage. Now we'll see what DT wants to do with these sentry droids. He's actually not going to go for Vader. Instead, he's going to go for the regular jet trooper with a charged shot with 6 range, which is plenty. His other 2 charges, one is canceled, the other one, actually, they're all canceled. So, unfortunately for Emma, though, 3 damage is enough to kill a regular sentry, regular jet trooper. Emma is deciding if he wants to discard to save this jet. He could use Zillow for that. If he does do that, DT will probably just move up and kill the jet with his other sentry droid, so I'm not sure if that's worth it. The other sentry, since he seems like he's not going for Vader, doesn't have a better target than the regular jet trooper, so he should probably just take the damage. And he does, so the jet dies. The other sentry doesn't have many options besides attacking Vader. He could go for a very long range shot against a officer. It would be instead he double moves. I think he could have gotten a 7 range shot off against a regular officer, which has pretty decent potential to hit with charge shot, but grabbing this generator was definitely the safer play, guaranteeing 4 points. And leaving a regular officer alive is really no problem. At the end of this round, DT is going to grab 12 points from objectives. And Emma decides to sit on the middle generator, denying 4 points from DT. Emma does avoid a end of round Junlin Terror, as it would not be able to reach any of figures. Both players, DT actually draws 2 and Emma only draws 1 card. DT almost has his full set of command cards drawn. I think he has 1 left, which he will draw with Black Market, I believe. DT also scores 8 points from objectives. Emma has only taken out Gideon so far. Vader's going to try to kill the elite Enexu. In fact, Vader can force choke the Enexu to death. Emma will probably move Vader towards the sentry droid so he can get a first start of round attack against the sentry droid at the bottom. And force choke this Enexu to death. I believe he can do both things. Yep. If he has force rush or anything like that, he might be able to get an attack and a force choke off at the beginning of this round. Even with all that, ET is way ahead on points. There's no way for Emma to kill DT's Bantha anytime soon. Emma is hanging in there though, playing tough and not giving up. He does have 17 points total. But DT has Call the Vanguard, which he uses to get the sentry droid out of range of Vader's attack. Now Vader has to use some kind of movement cards to get into range of one of these sentry droids. Meanwhile, Emma's officer looks like it's going to die. DT has the range and the damage. Emma could have tapped Zillow to negate the Pierce and toss a card. Instead, DT plays positioning advantage to guarantee the kill. Now, if Emma wants to save the officer, he'd have to play negation and a card with Zillow and tap Zillow, which is probably not worth it. So what does Emma have left? A very healthy Vader, who's a little bit too far away to do anything useful. One more elite jet trooper in each group, one with 4 damage and the other one fully healthy. And DT still has a very healthy Bantha, 2 elite sentry droids, and a smattering of support units. DT's also sitting at 27 points. He'll probably grab 8 points from objectives at the end of this round, which means that this will likely be the last round. A weak officer attack against a regular smuggler, doing 2 damage. I'm actually surprised that Emma decided to attack the smuggler instead of pushing Vader up towards the sentries, although then DT would have just activated the sentries and ran away, so there's not many options left for Emma. The jet trooper on the left generator is completely useless. Vader, unless he has some kind of movement cards, is also useless. And the officer has activated already. The only other figure that can do anything is this elite jet trooper, which is not enough. In fact, DT will probably activate his Bantha and try to kill the jet trooper in the middle of the map with it. All it has to do is 2 damage on the trample, since it can land on the jet for 1 damage. Instead, DT decides to go with his regular smuggler to try to attack this jet trooper. He actually has a very strong roll. Regular smugglers have Surge for stun and Surge for Pierce 1. So DT announces 3 Pierce 1, but really don't have to announce what you're using the Surge for until after modifiers. So it sounds like Emma's not playing any modifiers. Zillow is untapped. Emma decides to tap a card, to toss shared experience and convert it to an evade instead of tapping Zillow. It would have been better to toss a card and tap Zillow for so there would only be 1 damage instead of 2. So at this point, Emma should probably activate the yellow jet trooper. Although it doesn't look like... Well, DT can simply move the Bantha on top of it to kill it. So he might as well activate it before it dies. He doesn't have that many good options with it. He could attack the smuggler. He could move back in and attack the Bantha. At this point, the game's pretty much over because this is the last figure he has that can do anything useful this round. He still does have a healthy Vader, but DT's been really good at playing around Vader instead of engaging. Emma does activate the yellow jet, and he does decide to attack the regular smuggler who rolls a dodge. He has 3 movement points left with this jet. There's not really any place he can put him that's going to be safe from the Bantha Rider. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the spot he's in is exactly 15 spaces away. Although if DT did move the Bantha there, Uh, that gives Vader something to do this round, so he probably won't do that. DT continues to move his figures away from Vader. Now he's guaranteeing himself 2 generators at the end of the round. DT will get the last activation. He could potentially position his Bantha to push Emma's officer off of the middle generator, guaranteeing 12, 12 points from objectives. The only way for Emma to avoid that is by putting Vader on top of that middle generator. Because if DT did that, that pretty much guarantees the game with a trample. In fact, DT doesn't have to push the officer off the generator. He could go for a kill on the officer, which would end the game if Emma doesn't put Vader on top of the middle generator. Emma actually puts the red jet on top of the middle generator, which means there's no way for DT to push both of those figures off of that generator. However, I'm not sure if he has the movement points to get to the far left generator now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He actually can get in range of the far left generator, which puts him at 39 points. At that point, game might as well be over. He could potentially get to 40 with Black Market. He only has 1 card left, which he will have to draw at the end of the round. You can't choose to not draw. So he's going in for the kill now. Emma negates element of surprise. Or rather, negates it. A max roll. 6 damage, pierce 2. Now Emma's only option for prolonging the game is to put Vader on the left generator. Otherwise the game's over. So Vader has to activate now. He can't remove his bleed. And he has to double move to get to the left generator. Alternatively, he could move onto one of the other generators, either the right or the far right generator. That would also negate a 4-point swing, which would end the game. And it would also put Vader in a better spot to actually do something next round, although At this point, it doesn't really make a difference. Whatever happens, Vader has to end his movement on a generator. And he does choose to go for the far right generator, taking 2 damage from bleed. He'll also force surge. So now he may be hoping for a end of round attack against this elite sentry droid. And instead of going for the far left generator, DT decides to sit on top of Vader, forcing him to move back. Now his end of round attack is wasted. Well, it'll go against the Bantha. He'll also trample for 1 damage against Vader. So DT's going to take 8 points from objectives, putting him at 39. Which means all he has to do to win the game is kill either the officer or the elite jet trooper in the middle of the map, or wait out till the end of the round. Five damage to the Bantha, 6 rather. Now TT takes initiative and plays Jundlin Terror, which will put him on top of Vader for another 1 damage. A trample for, let's see how many more. 2 more. And now also DT gets initiative. He'll probably go with the sentries now, just to try to end the game. Well, one last trick for Emma, playing Call the Vanguard. Probably should have moved his jet so it's diagonal. That way he could retreat to a spot where the sentries couldn't both get to him. He should definitely end this movement adjacent to the officer, so the officer gets a reroll with Cower. And now DT has a chance to go to work. He plays Black Market Prices and Death Blow to gain a victory point to end the game. Definitely a good way to finish it off. So, that's the end of the game. DT's Bantha list takes another round, this time on now HOTE, which is suboptimal for the Bantha, let's say, but that's no problem for a player like DT, who Keeps most of his list alive throughout the whole game. In fact, only losing 9 points from kills. That being Gideon and the Elite Nexu. So, thanks again for watching, and that'll do it for me for tonight.